Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Prep Life and a Prepped Life update. Occasionally, I want to update you with the news, especially as it's relevant to preparedness, and certainly this is. I don't know if you saw the news, but at Michigan State University had 3 innocent people killed and 5 critically injured when a gunman went into the campus and started opening firing, and also winded up taking his own life. The Michigan State University killer was previously charged with a felony, but was still able to buy guns. Here's why, according to CNN via the headline. So one of the reasons I want to do this is because I hate the national media when it comes to things like this because they spin their narrative. 2, you need to understand the context of the situation. And 3, you need the education and information on how to be best prepared for a circumstance like this. So first of all, the Michigan State University killer was not charged with a felony. He was actually charged with a misdemeanor. Now, initially, the charge that he got, which was illegally concealing a weapon inside of a vehicle, according to Ingham County prosecutors, that was later downed to a misdemeanor in which he pled guilty to. So the idea that they would say a felon somehow got a gun, that's not what happened. I would venture to say that most places in this country, especially heavily dense populated metropolitan areas, are working with very liberal district attorneys that are giving a lot of leniency to criminals, period, including in this case where he was not charged with a felony, he was charged with a misdemeanor. Personally, I believe in constitutional carry like the great state of Utah does. That's why I live here. And carrying a weapon concealed, period, should not be an illegal act or crime. He was charged with a felony, got downgraded to a misdemeanor in 2019, and he purchased a firearm. We don't know if these are the specific weapons that were used, but in 2021, he purchased 2 guns. Law enforcement officer said one was a Taurus and the other was a Hi-Point 9mm, both semi-automatic pistols chambered in 9mm. It's not clear whether either of those weapons were used, but it's also unclear as whether the 43-year-old with no known ties to Michigan State University targeted the university or it was just a random act of violence. He died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound hours after the first shots rang out on campus. The suspect had a note in his pocket that threatened other shootings hundreds of miles away. According to his father, he went crazy after his mother passed away. Now, what we have to understand about active shootings in the country, there are several factors that are involved in these active shootings that include 3 or more victims, and that depends on the institution that you fall into. I mean, if 10 inner city people from Chicago were killed in a neighborhood, that wouldn't be deemed a mass shooting, and we wouldn't be talking about it. Right? Even if it's on one city street, which happens, multiple people are murdered in the inner city of Chicago every single weekend, but that's not really highlighted in national media. Now, what's the difference between that and a mass shooting? Personally, having done a lot of research on these things, the major differences are a mental health crisis versus criminal intent, likely criminal intent. A gangbanger kills another gangbanger because they're representing their gang or backing their territory on a city street. That is very different in the type of shooting versus an active shooting where somebody loses their mind because they lose their mother and have an active psychosis that involves a mass shooting rampage. The reason I think it's important to delineate the two is because the intent and the motivation behind these shootings is important. A lot of times, including this article, we default to the tool. I mean, there was even a victim of Sandy Hook, and I feel sorry for her, but she was a victim of Sandy Hook and wound up being in this mass shooting, at least in the crowds that were escaping it. And she was making all of these talking points about how we need to make effective change. And then the national media was running with it, saying the effective change is getting rid of guns. Well, before it was AR rifles because they're assault rifles or weapons of war, and now we're calling pistols assault pistols. So pistols, semi-automatic pistols especially, have the overwhelming highest majority of the weapons that are used in shootings, period, including mass shootings, not AR-15s. Also, the overwhelming majority of gun deaths in America are suicide, not actual acts of violence or mass shootings, period. So when we talk about these things, the context needs to be really clear. The final point here is what I noticed on the videos that were captured around Michigan State University. The first problem is there's videos being captured across Michigan State University. So a lot of people that were even in direct harm's way had their cell phones out because they prioritized capturing it on their cell phones for social media over saving their own lives. I mean, there were even videos inside of classrooms where they were videotaping the barricade of the door. Now, what's the resounding difference between this shooting and, let's say, Uvalde? Well, Uvalde, they were elementary school students. They were children. This Michigan State University shooting, they're adults. So we have the helpless versus people who can help themselves. One thing that I noticed, and I want to get your feedback on this, if you notice it too, make sure to leave a comment down below. But all the videos I saw, it was sheer mayhem. It was chaos. People running everywhere. One person with one firearm comes onto a campus and everybody loses their mind. There's nobody using sound tactics, being rational about decision making. Even the idea of barricading a door. In some cases, the door was open, or I saw one video where the door was open, or maybe it didn't even have a door, and they just piled furniture on top of that to stop the shooter from coming in. And they were sitting around in a circle inside of this dormitory or this classroom, just waiting for the shooter to come. And nobody was trying to escape. Nobody was looking for plans to get off the X. And that's the problem. Here's the education I'll offer you. The acronym Run, Hide, Fight, or Run, Hide. Let's take the first component of Run, Hide. Run, hide is a significant issue. I don't have a problem with fight, right? I don't have a problem with that because I think you should be prepared to do that. But let's say I said to you, as a young person who doesn't have a lot of experience or preparedness training, I said, run and hide. One, where are you running? Where's the context for that? Like, where are you going to? Have you used your brain, or did you just follow an acronym and emergency procedures, and because it said run, you just run? Like, the first thing we need to do is observe, because we need to take information from what's happening in our environment to gain more situational awareness to make the best decision moving forward. Running is not always the preferred tactic. Hiding certainly is not. I want you to remember when you were a kid, where did you like to hide? Well, you like to get in nooks and crannies, in cabinetry, behind things, behind doors, inside closets, which means you're not setting yourself up physically to be able to fight. You don't hide in a position where you could have a fire extinguisher at the ready because that's all you have. We're saying hide, and like you did in hide and seek. So when you hide, are you setting yourself up for success? Again, these children, I say children, it was like they were children. But these adults that were hiding inside this classroom, hunkering down, they were waiting for themselves to get killed. They had no means of defending themselves. They had no posture setting themselves up for success to defend themselves. They were literally in the fetal position waiting for first responders to come. And here's the thing about first response. Even if first responders are on the site of a campus, in this case, Michigan State University, they do not have the manpower to potentially get to you to save you. One, in an active shooting protocol, they're going towards the sound of gunfire where they can identify and put down the threat. In some cases, even using Uvalde as a case study, they're setting containment and they potentially aren't getting to you at any time, which is not the protocol for active shooting. I'm just saying that just recently happened. And some students had to wait for over an hour, including some students that were alive inside of the classroom. So if you're just sitting and waiting because you ran, you hid inside of a classroom, again, that's not the best technique. We want you to observe and we want you to flee, but flee using your mind to make rapid decisions on the fly and adapt, and also be prepared to fight. Look, I don't know what the protocol is in the laws for concealed carry in Michigan State University, but If I was on a college campus, I would not be the victim of circumstance. I would not allow myself to become the victim of somebody who lost their mind, picked up a pistol, and decided to end human life. It doesn't have to be a pistol. It could be a vehicle. It could be a knife. It could be anything. What I'm saying is, if you're prepared because you have a plan, and then you have the equipment to enable that plan, then you're more prepared than just being a victim of circumstance. So we have the acronym OFF, observe, flee and flight, or fight and flee inversely. Because sometimes you might have to fight right out the gate because the shooter is on top of you, but maybe not. And if not, use the opportunity at every given opportunity when afforded to break off the X. This idea of you run and hide and you hunker down, no, that's not what we do. A good case study would be Las Vegas and the active shooter that was in Mandalay Bay. Many people who were killed were piled on top of each other because there were people in the crowd who were yelling at people to get down. Naturally, when somebody's shooting, the certain position that you should be in, naturally you would think the person needs to be down because the person's shooting from the ground level. But nobody knew that he was in an elevated position. So if you ran and somebody said, get down, and you followed that protocol, you laid down and you became a victim. But if you knew that you had to get off the X and that was your best chance of survival because you took in information, you looked around gaining situation awareness, and you popped off the X, then you might have increased your chances of survival. And I think in the case of Mandalay Bay, having talked to law enforcement officers who were there, who even kicked in the door of the active shooter, and victims who were there who we've questioned and talked to, the best statistical probability of survival was breaking off the X. Observe, flight, and flee, or flee and fight, or fight and flee used inversely. Be prepared to fight always. That's key. Also, lastly, let me talk about this. This is the Silent Pocket from a company called Silent, SLNT, Sierra Lima November Tango. And this is a Faraday bag. Now, we are thinking about integrating this into one of our fanny packs as a sleeve component, as a plus-up. Now, one of the things that you guys are becoming more savvy on, which I'm going to have, I can't wait to do the new production studio because I want to set it up like Johnny Carson. Wow, that's so old. I want to set it up like whoever the late night show is with a guest. And I want to have guys like, I don't know, the owner of Silent come on and talk about Faraday bag technology and how it's stopping for you to be exploited via your RFID or the chips that are on your credit cards or your phone, whether it's Bluetooth or being interrogated some other means. This can prevent that. You know, this is the whole EMP-proof concept because it's copper line and prevents interrogation or exploitation of your electronic devices. That is becoming more and more of a concern as technology, including AI, increases. We got to pay attention to things like that. And I know people will be like, well, why would I ever use that? If you travel, if you go through airports, if you shop at shopping malls where people are out and about, you are likely to be around somebody who is using some piece of technology to exploit and interrogate the device you're carrying on your person. This will prevent that. Like if I took this and opened it up, I love the YouTube concept of this. If you're listening to this, you can't because it's not on a podcast. You wouldn't have any idea what I was talking about. But there's a copper lined insert in here. So if I took a phone and I Bluetooth it to a speaker and then I dropped this in this bag, that Bluetooth connection would be cut, which means if somebody was using Bluetooth RF to be able to interrogate, and I don't know if it's radio frequencies that's being used through Bluetooth networking, a frequency to get through to this phone, they couldn't interrogate it. So to have this on your person to protect your credit cards, your ID cards, and also your technological devices, including iPhones or phones, period, this is the way to go. This could be in your fanny pack. This could be inside of your mobility bag for EMP proofing stuff that you have on board. I even thought about ham radio. Like if I have a ham radio, like I have a ham radio behind me. This is a Yaesu. This is the FT3D. This is good for digital scanning. You could SMS on it. If I took this, broke it down, put it in this pouch, and then put it in our mobility bag from Fieldcraft Survival, well, wow, this would be EMP proof. I mean, it depends on the scale of the EMP, but it would be EMP proofed on the back of that panel. And then after that EMP attack, where it fried circuitry, you potentially could remove that and then use this. So where would I store this? Well, I would rather store it in a pouch lined with copper that's from Silent or from a comparable company than just have it out in the open. So something to think about. The reason I bring that up, if you're interested in something like that, I'm thinking about further integrating with Silent SLNT to see if we could provide you some value in some of our product lines, including mobility bags, 20 liters, and even fanny packs that we sell. If you're interested, leave comments and feedback down below because we love your comments and feedback. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification tab if you're finding value out of these episodes, especially since I think this was our first Prep Life update via the news cycle changing, and it was important that we got to it. If you find that beneficial, make sure you give us feedback as well. I appreciate you guys. Till next time. Peace out, guys.